Hi, Simon here, GM8NYB. Well, that's my CR100 completed, and I've sat it up there next to the other radios. It's close to the antenna entrance there. The one in the far right there is the FG101B. It's probably made about the 70s. They all work. And then I've got the other one, which is the KW2000. Probably, I think that might have been about the 70s, I'm not sure. Then that CR100 1940s. I don't know if you can see there, that's the little matching unit for the KW2000. It's a KW107 as a balance matcher. I use a balance line feeder for my aerials. And then to the left there, with a bit of wood on top of it, is the modern FGDX 3000 there. Many years ago, in the early 70s, when I started high school and going to the school library, that had a magazine rack, and one of the magazines was this Practical Wireless, dated January 1973. It's the first one I'd ever seen. I was quite fascinated with all the construction items that were in it. So I'll just scroll through this one. I downloaded this one. A lot of adverts to start with, about 20 pages of adverts. Then you get to the index there. We'll zoom in the index a bit, and it gives you, well, usual Practical Wireless things, a lot of constructional items. Now, one thing that caught my eye was this one here. It's called the Mighty Midget. The Mighty Midget, I'll go to page 798 on it. There it is. It was written by a guy called Halvor Moorshed. I think he was the editor of Practical Wireless at one time. And this Mighty Midget used a very new and a very small integrated circuit on ZN414. Now, I don't have a ZN414. I did have, I've lost it now in the midst of time, but it looked a bit like this. Now, this is what the ZN414 looked like. It's a TO18 CAN. This is actually a transistor. The ZN414 also had 3 leads. As I say, I don't have a ZN414 in this configuration. I've got a more modern one that's slightly different to this. Now, this was built into a snuff box, a small plastic box, about 1.5 inches long, I think. So slowly I gathered all the components together and I made this little radio. The only difficult part to source was this compression trimmer, which had been altered, but I did eventually get one. Anyway, looking down at the rest of the magazine, there's something else caught my eye. Shortwave converter by somebody called R.H. Longdon. Now then, further down, there's another article. An amperband receiver designed by a guy called F.G.Rayers. R.F. Longdon and F.G.Rayers are the same person, as I've later found out. F.G.Rayers, Frank G. Rayers, G3OGR, was the writer in these Practical Wirelesses of many radio designs. And of course, sometimes he wrote under pen names. Now, I made a quick list here of some of his articles. These are mostly from the 1970s, and he probably had an article in nearly every month, and sometimes 2. But again, he used a pseudonym for if he had a second article. Sometimes had 2 articles by his own name. It's R.H. Longdon. I think I said R.F. Longdon. It's R.H. Longdon was one of them, and R.F. Graham was the other one. He also used one called Charles Heath at some point. He may have had other ones. Now, was quite a prolific writer was F.G.Rayers. He also wrote science fiction books and novels. And one of his designs in the 1973 August edition was called a mini-com receiver. That was one of the first ones I really looked at, and I was quite fascinated. I wanted to build it at the time. I never did build it in the end. So let's have a look at his circuit diagrams. that is the August edition of Practical Wireless, August 1973. And mentioned at the bottom here, the Minicom receiver. By that time, the index was on the second page down. The Minicom receiver was the first constructional item. There were a lot of adverts. These companies that probably don't exist anymore. It is Minicom receiver. I'll just zoom in on that circuit. Now, he made a lot of designs and he always used Denco coils. One for the aerial, the oscillator and the mixer. 3 different types of Denco coil. He also used IF transformers, were also made by Denco. Now, Denco ceased trading, I think, in the beginning of the 80s. So they're very hard to find, these coils now. So if we were going to build something like this, it would be almost impossible to get new parts. Although on eBay, I've seen them for sale for £20–25 each, which is quite expensive because you use 3 plug-in coils for each band. So if you had 5 bands, that's 15 coils, which is expensive to buy all those coils. But I came across a design for making your own Denco coils. Now, a little bit about Denco coils. As I say, they're very hard to get now, but you can see them on eBay. There's a small coil there. It's a red one. That's more pink, that's red. And the blue. Now, these came in ranges, and they called them T ranges, like 1T, 2T, 3T, 4T, depending on the frequency. Now, the bigger the number, like 4T or 5T, they were wound for the higher frequencies. Now then, on eBay they'll probably go for about £25–30, but I was fortunate once I came across a whole pile of them being sold from Holland. Somebody in Holland was selling them. I think they realised exactly what they were, so I bought them, and here they are. Almost a box of them, about £20 for the lot. Now, they're not in the best condition. I'll show a few of them here. Now, the nice things about these Denco coils, they came in little canisters. Now, this I've written on it 1T or 1TY. It's a yellow coil, range 1T. The higher the number, from range 1 to 5, range 5 being the highest frequencies and range 1 being the lowest. Now, these cans also doubled as a screening can once we were built. Now, this is a range 1T. They have 9-pin, I think it's 9-pin valve base. Inside you can just see in there the iron dust core. It's adjustable by a small little grub screw at the top. Now, the cans, these are the cans. Once you'd built the thing, you could use that as a base, a hole in it. Once you've adjusted it, then you'd put that over the top. That's the set I've got from the 1T yellow, 2T, 3T, 4T and 5T. There's a small amount of windings on it, obviously it's the higher frequencies, and these were the lower frequencies. Now, I've got a complete set of these yellow ones, but I don't have a complete set of the others. Now, there's some of the blue ones I've got here. I think that may be range 1T blue. 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 5T. I think it's very similar to that one. Well, that's the Denco coils I've collected so far. They're not all in the best condition, as you can see from this red one. And this yellow one here, it's been soldered in. Basically, they were designed to go in these sockets, B9As. Now, that's the yellow coil, the 5T. It actually had a nut that comes off for locating it. And each one of these coils, they had a dust iron core on a brass rod with a slight slot in the end for adjusting it. So as the core was moved up or down, the dust iron core would come in and out of the coil. If you were to build anything from these Practical Wireless designs or other magazines and you needed these coils, then you'd have to buy them on probably on eBay. But there is another way. I saw a design on the internet for making your own coils using a 3D printer. So I had to go making a few. These are the formers. The design, I'll leave a link in the description of the guy who did it. I can't remember his call sign just now. He didn't have the fancy nuts, he just had those just basic nuts and a hollow tube. Now I threaded this to fit a steel a brass bar. Whoops, so that's the brass bar, you can screw it in. So I cut that to size. I made myself my own former. Now you couldn't get dust iron. This is a ferrite bead. I just soldered the end of the brass in the end there and cut a small slot in the top. These. Now on this one, I started to put pins in it. Now I think the 0.8 millimeters was the original pins, and I found a bag of these online. Apparently they're called chandelier pins, whether they're useful. They're not very long. But I can cut them down and I put them inside. I made them flush as well. I had one go of winding, a bit crude, of copying the blue one. So there's my attempt. I didn't get the right wire sizes. So what I need to do, I want to put this onto a VNA, a nano VNA, and see what the difference is. Now, in my next video, I'll show you how I printed them. The colours, by the way, are supposed to be blue. That's blue, looks blue. That's supposed to be green. It's just the colour. It's an SLA printer, a resin printer. So it depends on the colour of the resin I managed to get. This was supposedly red, but it's more pinky. But it's basically white. I just coloured it in. I've also got yellow, which I haven't printed yet. So I've got yellow colour. I wonder what colour that will come out like. And then I'm going to use my homemade former to go inside it. Right, thanks for watching, and I'll make another video of doing the Denco coils in the printer.